Dude runs out on stage, grabs a mic, and he says, just now, Craigslist had removed its adult services side. Basically prostitution on Craigslist. That happened in real time with these people praying against this thing in the nation, sexual immorality in the nation, and worshiping, and a miracle happened right there. And I'm getting chills just telling the story. Hit me in such a way that I was like, oh, things happen when you worship. Things change when you worship. Realities that people say are unbreakable in a nation like the U.S. can be basically turned on its face. Oh, this can never be done. Oh yeah? Get in an environment of worship and watch what happens.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Creative Culture. This is your boy Nehemiah. Ashley's not with me, but she's holding the cameras down today.
Let's go.
Today we're not at the house. We're here at a very great friend of mine's, and I can't wait for y'all to get to know who he is and his story. I think is just dope. We had a whole nother podcast literally while we were eating breakfast, so I already know this one's gonna be a good one. So without further ado, give it up to my brother. He is a husband. He's a worship leader, a songwriter. He's just a great person in general. So give it up to my boy Andrew.
Man, I'm honored to be here, brother.
I'm excited.
Wow, it's crazy, dude. That was literally the first time ever anybody has introduced me as a husband.
Yeah,
man, that's crazy. Wow, hearing that out loud for the first time from somebody else is crazy. My gosh.
Since we talk about marriage, how's been marriage life been, man?
Man, it's literally,
somebody
hit me yesterday. First, I hadn't seen him forever. First question, how's married life? And the first thing I feel like I've answered, literally, I kid you not, with everybody is, I'm learning. I'm learning so much, you know? And Jazz and I, my wonderful wife, we dated for like 5 years. Don't hate me. All right.
Ain't nothing wrong with
that. Okay. Cause some people are like, you took forever.
No.
No, we dated for, almost 5 years, and I still feel like I'm learning how to do this thing right, man. And, but it's been great. It's a blessing. I have, I had people tell me, it's going to you find a wife, you found favor with God, and all that stuff. And I feel like I've seen that. It wasn't one of those things where I'm looking for it, so it's going to happen. And there she goes upstairs already moving around, doing things. No, but literally, I've seen the favor of God, the hand of God move mightily in such a way that it's not just like, I've seen doors open up. I've seen opportunities come my way. And all of these things started to happen once we got married, and so I'm just grateful. I'm excited, man, and it's awesome.
That's incredible. I personally, obviously, I only dated Ashley for a year and a half. A year. And then I proposed to her because immediately I knew she was the one.
She's the one.
But obviously, you knew that immediately too.
Man.
But for me, I think I don't know. I rush things,
Hey, it's all good, man. When
I mean, you figure we've been married now 6 years, and you say learning, bro. I learn something new every single day, and she teaches me something. Or I'm able to teach her something. She says I took the blinders off of her eyes.
Oh, there
and I'm
you go.
like, that's not a good thing. Is that a good thing? And she's like, yeah, you taught me a whole new way of life. And I think marriage life, I always encourage people, marriage life is the best life.
Yeah, man.
Being able to submit to somebody and they submit to you.
Yeah.
And as men, you're guiding a household, and either you can guide them to heaven or you can guide them to hell.
Jeez.
And for me, knowing that now that I'm a dad, obviously my daughter's 5, and just being able to I'm learning how to guide my family, and it's every single day.
Yeah.
My daughter's in school. I got to learn how to guide her even in that sense.
Yeah, man.
And then how I also my wife teaching me how to maybe respond to certain things when my daughter brings things up to me,
Yeah.
And she's just like, babe, you got to be this, you got to do that. And I love being married, man. So it's funny we started out in marriage.
There you go.
But I want people to get to know you. Just share a little bit about your story. Some people may know you, some people may not know you. So I just give you the floor to just express who you are a little bit.
Yeah, man. Well, like you said, currently a worship leader at Redemption Church. Shout out Redemption. Let's go. And also a member of the Red Worship Collective. And put out some music this year, and it's been incredible. But it didn't start there. Obviously, I grew up in downtown Los Angeles, man. I was born literally smack dab. I was born in the city of Glendale. That's where the hospital was. But I grew up literally in the middle of downtown Los Angeles, just down the street from Dodger Stadium, off of Academy Road and Stadium Way. And spent 17 years of my life there, man. And consider myself a Southern Californian, an LA boy through and through. But God has opened doors for me to, obviously move around a little bit. went to college in the city of Chico. Shout out Chico State. Didn't finish, but hey, still claim it, man.
Still claim it, man.
That's all that matters. And I don't mind sharing that. God, had his way. But anyway, went to Chico State, and that is also where I met my beautiful wife, Jaslyn, and was a part of a ministry there for a few years. That's kind of where I got serious about ministry, right? Because pretty much I was raised Catholic, man. My family, I had some Christians in my family who were proud Christians, but for the most part, Mass was the thing. When we went to church, it was a thing we did. And it's a funny story. And I was sharing this in another interview type thing that I did not too long ago, where I kind of always knew the hand of God was on my life, for lack of a better word, I knew I needed to have a connection with God, right? From age about 7, maybe 8 years old, I would walk down the street from my house to Mass without my parents, without anybody really knowing. I just literally would get myself up. You can imagine a young little kid getting dressed, combing my hair to the best that I knew how, putting on my dress shoes and walking to Mass, and literally sitting in a church pew. Didn't really understand what was going on, but I knew I needed to be in the house of God. And it was a wonderful thing. And so that was my early age. And then, right before then, or a little bit after, about age 14 is when I got saved in LA, attending my uncle's church, and kind of fell away a little bit. High school kicks in, right?
Always,
too cool for school,
always.
And then bam, when I ended up in Chico, kind of bringing it back full circle, that is where I kind of got serious about ministry, starting playing guitar at a church I met a guy at a Guitar Center. He was like, hey, there's this church down the street. They need some help. They need a guitarist. You sound pretty good. Could you help out? And, ended up down there. And it was crazy, man, because that is where I first felt, man, maybe God, you put me on this earth to do this thing, and started off as a guitarist, and then started learning a little bit about leadership, learning about taking care of people and leading teams and pastoring people and getting into small groups and that whole thing. And literally before I knew it, I ended up becoming a worship pastor there, man, leading worship at the church every Sunday, building a team. We had a team of volunteers that was like 5 or 6 people. And then by the time I had transitioned out, we had grown to like 32 people.
Wow.
And all volunteers between the team and like the techs that we had. And it was a smaller church, but transitioned out, went through a little bit of a rough time in 2019, and ended up in North Carolina, bro.
Of all places,
you were literally
in the west. You
man.
at the end of the states and went to the whole other side.
Believe it or not, man, ended up connecting with a wonderful ministry that I have shared in every platform context that I've been able to be in. Living Waters Ministry, man. I can't praise them enough. I can't shout them out enough. They were there for me when I was at probably one of the lowest places of my life. And they are in Hiddenite, North Carolina, led by Pastor Lee and Denise Boggs, and ended up having to go out there to get some ministry, man, to get some counseling, to kind of deal with the stuff that I had gone through, and was there for about 4.5 months, almost 5. And while there is where we got connected with Pastors Ron and Hope Carpenter. Jaslyn is now, who was also with me at Living Waters, is Pastor Hope's assistant, right? Yeah. And but they got connected, and then kind of the dominoes. Then they ended up having a guitar position open because one of their guitar players moved, and it literally was like kind of like the stars aligned, because Jaslyn had a place, and then while they have a place for me, and so that is literally how we came back to the West Coast. Wow. And basically settled in the Bay Area of California. Never imagined, man, growing up that I'd end up here in the Bay, but God, right? And so we've been here in the Bay Area for 4 years now, going on 4 years. And it's been a beautiful experience. Again, kind of a repeat of the story, man. I came on as a guitarist, as a contracted musician, played guitar for 1.5 years more so, and then led worship a little bit, led a song here or there, depending on what the song was and what the service kind of called for. And then our former worship leader transitioned out. And then about a week later, had a conversation with pastors, and they basically were like, would you like to take responsibility and really lead this team, and alongside with folks like Lizzie Morgan, and Terrence and whatnot, would you be willing to assume responsibility and fulfill this role and obligation? And I think it was my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, probably, she answered first. And we, it's funny, yes, and
you're like, hold up, wait.
Yeah, and because I was in school at the time.
Oh, wow.
And what was crazy is pastor had asked, he was like, we understand that you're in school right now, and we don't want it to affect, what your intentions are, what you're trying to, go toward. And I remember specifically, Jasmine was like, it won't, and I was like, and why I say that is because I was so shocked at the opportunity, at the question, that like my brain kind of like froze for a second, and I wanted to say yes. I wanted to say it wouldn't. I just didn't kind of know what to say. Cat had my tongue, right?
Yeah.
But that's why God paired me with somebody like Jazz, who was just like, here, no, I'll say it, And literally, so we had that conversation following week, filling out the paperwork and making everything official. And then, literally since then, I've been full-time, completely under Pastor Ron and Hope's covering, and in their church, leading their worship department on the West Coast. And it has been an amazing ride. I've learned so much, a couple challenges here and there. And then, of course, with Red Worship coming, kind of coming to a fruition and being established, it has been a joy. I wouldn't change anything, man.
Yeah.
That's pretty much who I am, where I'm at. And
yeah. So since I'm hearing everything, and it just brings me to everything for some reason led back to worship.
Yeah.
And your whole thing, like you started 7, 8 years old, you're getting yourself ready, doing your hair as best as you can to go to mass, right?
Yeah.
And like you still, like, no matter what was instilled with you as a little child, even being a Catholic, us Hispanics were like, my grandmother Catholic, like she's Catholic, like, and all that. So to see like everything was led back to worship. You went through trials, and who doesn't go through trials in high school, right? Like, who doesn't try to find who they are in high school. And then everything almost led back to worship. You end up moving literally across the whole state.
Yeah.
All these, you went through literally middle of the states, literally all the way to ministry. And then you were getting counseling there, and then you ended up doing worship. Come back to California, worship. And I see the way that you worship. I always tell people, you can tell what they've been through the worship.
Yeah, man.
And the way you jump, the way the way you even strum your guitar, everything that you do is with a purpose. You can tell you're not up there to show off. You're up there to show God, this is for you.
Yeah.
What got you to that place to want to worship like that? Because not everybody, I've been in church my whole life. Not everybody worships with a pure heart. Wow, man. And you go up there, it's not a show. You're like, no, I get to go do this. Yeah. It's never I have to. Yeah. Obviously I'm blessed and fortunate to be behind the scenes a little bit. So I get to see what you prep beforehand. Yeah. And I can just tell there's this it's not a bad anxious. It's like a great anxious. Like I get to go worship. Yeah. It's like, I want to go worship. Yeah. And what gets you to that place? What got you there? Wow.
That's a huge question, because I don't think I've ever kind of shared my origin in that, kind of getting exposed to worship and what worship was, what it is, and kind of how this whole thing came to begin. My first exposure to essentially like contemporary worship was, if I'm not mistaken, Jesus culture. Mm-hmm. So the time that I got saved, so 13, 14, I got saved in my uncle's church. His mom was my grandmother's sister. And believe it or not, I'm like a third generation, not directly in terms of my parents and my grandparents, but through aunts and grandparents and that whole kind of connection. Yeah. I'm actually like a third generation worship leader. Oh, wow. And a lot of people don't know this because it just wasn't talked about a whole lot. But my grandmother's sisters, my grandmother has, I want to say 5 sisters. 3 of them, I will name the order because I can't think of it off the top of my head, but 3 of the 5 had a singing trio. I want to say in the 80s.
That's crazy.
80s, 90s maybe, early 90s, called Simple Joy. And they would travel to the prisons here in California. Wow. Singing worship music, bro. I mean, like from the 80s, you know? So some of it sounded like country western and whatnot. And they played guitar. One of them played guitar and they would sing 3-part harmony. And it was beautiful. And I remember growing up, like I said, still going to mass, but like we had the influences, man. Yeah. And hearing them at like parties and stuff, or unfortunately like a funeral or something, or even like holidays, they would just break out and start singing songs and harmonizing. And I remember being a little kid and I'm like, what is this? Like, you know, because my dad played a little guitar.
Okay.
My mom sang. My mom has an incredible voice, but never like organized and seriously. So between them and then where Jesus culture comes in is because one of those aunts would take me to church, to her son's church. And that was where we would drive in her Nissan Sentra. I'll never forget this, man. And she would play that record, We Cry Out. I think it was We Cry Out or it was Your Love Never Fails. And she would play that CD
with Chris Kilala, right?
With Chris Kilala and Kim Walker-Smith, man. And she would play it over and over and over again in the car. So I remember just hearing, you know, oh Lord, we cry out for your mercy. And like that whole thing and the guitars and the drums and that loud expression. And I was just like, oh, this is fire, you know, before I knew what fire was, you know, and I just knew, I was already drawn to this, man. And my dad, he was like a classic rock head, you know? So when I was with him, my parents were separated. So, you know, when I was with him on the weekends, I was hearing like Led Zeppelin, man, and Black Sabbath and, you know, Leonard Skinner and all these guys and classic rock, big guitars, drums and all this other stuff. So I'd hear that with my dad. And then when I was with my aunt, I would hear this Christian music that sounded like this. I was like, wait, you can have both? What in the world? You know? Mm-hmm. So then that in combination with going to services and hearing that music live and seeing experiencing the presence of God for the first time through the sonics of what sounded like rock and roll, I was hooked from the jump. I was like, this is it. This is the ultimate thing that anybody could go after.
Yeah.
And, but I remember around that same time, I'm like, I want to do this. And I'll never forget, I was about 14 and, I had already started playing guitar for a little while. My dad put a guitar in my hand for the first time when I was like 9. Wow. And so I had a little bit, I knew a few chords and I could, you know, strum a song or two. And I remember asking somebody at the church that I went to, you know, can I try, you know, can I be a part of this? In my innocent, you know, little naive self, I asked, can I be a part of it? And he basically said, which was wisdom, you know, keep coming to church, keep showing yourself faithful. And then, you know, maybe you'll get a chance, man. But that crushed me because I'm like, but I am faithful. I'm his nephew. You know, I'm like, I come to church here, like whatever the case may be. And being told I couldn't do it made me want it even more. Made me love it even more. And then in that season, I was able to kind of find myself at a couple conferences. I was able to attend what was called The Call. I don't know if you guys are familiar with The Call.
Yes, I've heard of it.
Yeah, so The Call, I went to The Call in Sacramento and was amongst thousands of people worshiping and praying and fasting for, 3 days. And mind you, I had just gotten saved not too long before. So I felt like I was thrown, man, into the intensity of people who've been saved a long time, loving Jesus and wanting to see revival break out in this country. So being in that environment and seeing that many people worship and seeing miracles break out and seeing things happen. I remember, this one specific miracle, dude, where, they were praying specifically like against like sexual immorality, right? Mm-hmm. And they were praying and praying, God, purify this nation, and they're praying and singing and praying and singing. And then this dude runs out on stage. And in my head, I was a little skeptic. I was like, there's no way this could be real. So I grabbed my phone and I Googled it, what he was saying. Long and short of it, dude runs out on stage, grabs a mic and he says, just now Craigslist had removed its adult services side of its platform where people were, soliciting, mm-hmm. basically prostitution on Craigslist at the time. And so that happened in real time with these people praying against this thing in the nation, sexual immorality in the nation and worshiping. And a miracle happened right there. And I was like, I'm getting chills just telling the story.
Yeah.
It hit me in such a way that I was like, oh, things happen when you worship. Things change when you worship. Realities that people say are unbreakable in a nation like the U.S. can be basically turned on its face. Oh, this can never be done. Oh yeah, get in an environment of worship and watch what happens.
Watch what happens.
So all of that, and then like I said, after that, though I was on fire, I ended up in high school and then kind of straight away. But I had always listened to worship music, man, and I always found myself playing, these songs, and I just knew this was the environment that I wanted to be in. And as I got older, I found myself wanting more people to be in it. It wasn't enough for just myself to be in it. I was like, man, I want people to experience the peace that comes. I want people to experience the joy
that comes with
the excitement. People talk about it on Sunday mornings here at Redemption. Man, y'all are so young, jumping up around and whatever the case may be. Man, there is something that just hits where the Spirit of God is there, and the joy and the excitement and the energy that does happen when like, I'm praising God, but I'm leading others to do the same. He is inhabiting the praises of his people. Like, I want to be in this environment and I want others to experience it. And I think that was kind of where my heart as a worship leader was born, because I was like, it's not enough for me to just, I'm going to have my own thing with God. And it's when I say it's not enough, God is always enough. While I'm on this planet, he has called me to do more, which is to help others experience that, walking intimately with God, having moments where they're pouring their heart out, or when they're going through a tough time and they pour their heart out, and that peace that comes. And again, the motive and the intention is never for the feeling, is the thing that I'm going to get. He is our ultimate reward. But I want people to experience that, man. That thing, is the burden of my heart, and it does show itself when I'm like, when we lift our hands, it's a display of victory, but it's a display of surrender. I'm not doing that because I'm trying to get, he knows so much. Yeah. It's like, no, y'all, lift your hands, and here's why. And then seeing, that one dude in the back who's like, he's probably like, he's looking around, and then he starts to lift his hands a little bit, and then like, that is the moment I live for, bro. Like, and I'm not afraid to say that, And so anyway, that is pretty much why and how it came back. It keeps coming back to worship, even in North Carolina. I'm there basically getting treatment. I'm there getting counseling, whatever the case may be. They asked me, well, we know you're here and in process, but could you grab your acoustic guitar and maybe, lead one of our retreats, a couple of our retreats? And mind you, these people are coming in here, man, with the weight of the world on their shoulders, bro. They're there for healing. It's a healing ministry. So they got hearts going through stuff, and we're sitting there singing, how great is our God, for an hour straight till it breaks. God is greater than your addiction. God is greater than, the affair that just took place. God is greater, and before I start preaching, I just want to say that's essentially how it keeps coming back to that thing, man, because I knew something just would come alive when I'm in those settings, bro. In live or in a studio, it doesn't matter, man. There is I've told, my wife, I just feel more alive, when that's taking place. And I don't know, man. I think that's why I can sit here and talk about it with such excitement and such passion.
Yeah,
because it's the truth.
It lives in you. It's been instilled with you since before you were born, bro.
Yeah,
like, think about that. You just said your grandma.
Yeah.
And her, three of her sisters. Like, just to think about, like, it was in your blood already.
Yeah.
And it's like, even when we try to, like, go left, the blood keeps bringing us right back to the right.
Yeah, man.
Like, it's crazy to see that. Like, I'm just listening, like, bro, there's generations of worship inside of you. So now it does make sense what you've been through, what you've gone through, and that experience, that feeling. Man, for somebody to see that, like, praying against sexual immorality, and then it happens, like,
in real time.
Like, that would trip anybody out, and that would make anybody believe even more. And I love the fact that, like, even when you had those moments of not being there, like, because it was already in you, it brought you back.
Yeah, man.
And your worship, I think anybody's watching this, even listening to it, they can tell there's a burning sensation for just pure worship.
Yeah, man.
Through songs, right? Through music. Because music, I believe music is literally like, it brings anyone together.
Yeah.
And it can separate anyone.
Absolutely.
And music is I mean, it's the most listened to. I was looking at with Spotify, like, you know how they have the things. And I don't listen to music that much anyways. I'm a person that likes to sit in the car quiet, which is probably weird. But I was looking at some of the people's numbers, and I'm like, dude, this guy spent 30,000 minutes listening to music. And then I look at their top 5, and I'm like, dang, you're not even, like, you're a worship leader?
Yeah.
Your top 5, hell, what a worship, you know?
Oh my god.
But so it's like, dang, where is he leading from then? You know, where are you leading from then? Gotcha. Because if you're listening to 30,000 minutes of music in this past year, and out of your top 5 artists, only one is worship.
Wow.
Well, who are you leading? Because you also have to be careful when you're up there, because like, you're setting the atmosphere. You're being a part of the atmosphere setting. Yeah. God is using you as a vessel to bring in his presence. Yes. So that way when pastor comes up to preach, it's going to fall on their hearts even easier.
Absolutely.
You know, or it's going to be hard for him to do it. So it's like, man, who are you? Like, cover your ears. God gave us 2 ears for a reason. Yeah. You know, so it's like, you got to be careful.
Absolutely.
What you listen to. And to me, it's like, dude, it like tripped me out when I saw that. And he's one of my boys. Yeah. So I texted like, hey bro, I don't think you should be posting this. And secondly, let's talk this week. Yeah. Because I'm trying to understand, where's your worship coming from? Yeah. If what you're listening to is junk, if what you're listening to is not life driven, it's almost bringing death. Because eventually, if you keep listening to it, you're gonna become it. Like if I keep listening to you're a failure. Well, 2 years down the line, when I haven't succeeded, I'm like, well, I am a failure. Yeah. Why? Because for the past 2 years, your music has been failing. It's only been failing. It's only been taking your life away instead of giving you life. And that's why, like, people are like, man, because a few of my friends saw my top 5. They're like, bro, but you know so much about music. And I'm like, yeah, I know about it, but don't mean I listen to it. Yeah. Because I even use this as an example. My barber, who cuts my hair. Yeah. Be careful who touches your head. Yeah, man. It's the funniest thing to people. Yeah. Oh, you're too spiritual. No, it's not that I'm too spiritual. It's just you got to protect yourself at all times. Yeah. I work in like a place. Boxing. I work into a place. Yeah. I work at a place where I go into people's units. Bro, I went into a unit this week, and you don't even know this. I went to a unit this week that worshiping stuff that's left. Yeah. I'm like, oh shoot. I walked in there. They had the music playing. They weren't even in there, but the music was playing and it was very weird. Yeah. And I was like, man, Lord, I have to be in here. It's part of my job. And immediately the Holy Spirit was like, you're covered. Don't worry about it. You're good. But what happened when I walked right out, I wiped myself off. And my buddy's looking at me like, why are you doing that? I said, because I was like, did you feel that in there? He said, yeah, it felt dark. I said, well, why would I want to carry that to my home? Yeah, man. It's just the same way with worship. Yeah. Why, if I'm listening to music that's not giving me life, then I can't go up on a platform and deliver something to people that I can't even deliver to myself first. Absolutely. And to me, I see you as a person that delivers it to yourself before you can deliver it to others. Yeah. You can't lead somebody, because the thing is, you can't lead somebody to a place you haven't been yourself. No, man. I've heard that one principle said so many times since I've been saved in different contexts. Worship, but also like preaching and teaching, leading a small group, like whatever the case may be. You can't lead somebody to a place that you have not gone yourself. And if I'm completely honest, and we're going to be unfiltered, right? We're going to be transparent. There's times where I have not been intentional or even effective in that realm, and life gets in the way, and I know some men could relate. You go to the gym. I'm sorry, I don't want to listen to Carrie Job when I'm benching, 100%. But I'm gonna be honest. Yeah. There are times where, like, I won't name the playlist because I don't want people, oh yeah, Andrew listens to this playlist or whatever. Yeah. Where I'm not thinking. You go on autopilot, right? You put that playlist on, and you're not thinking about it. But then afterward, and I've seen this happen, and I promise, I'm not like self-fulfilling prophecy. I've seen this happen. Get out of the gym, spent 45 minutes, working out with this music in the background. It's just in the background. It's in the background. You're not paying attention to it. Yeah. You get out, you would think physically, okay, I just worked out. Man, I'm going to feel good. I'm going to be energized. I'm going to be calm. All the things that does happen when you work out.
but then I find myself mentally and emotionally on edge. Something happens at work, I react, snap, get a little negative, complain. And I'm like, man, what the heck did this come from? Like, you know, and I'll go to Jazz's office because she's down the way, and I'm like, this thing really ticked me off, and whatever, you know. And she's like, well, what's the matter? You know, you went to the gym, you did everything, you know, you took your supplements this morning. Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And we don't figure it out right there. They go back, I think about it. I'm like, I just came from where I spent 45 minutes listening to, you know, negativity, whatever. And even though it's in my subconscious, it does affect how I carry myself. It does affect my, you know, mental state or whatever the case may be. And again, the reason why I wanted to say that is because something I've seen happen too much is when people talk about like music or movies or entertainment, whatever the case may be, the narrative has become, don't listen to it because it's bad. Well, why is it bad? You know, and it becomes more of because I said so, and almost kind of like that religious thing of,
like, I need an explanation.
I need an explanation, or because it makes a leader or somebody in a position of influence uncomfortable, they're going to project that on younger people. Don't do this, you know. And what I love, and I cannot honor enough about Pastors Ron and Hope, is something that I've felt like I've always heard them talk about is, okay, it may not be inherently wrong, but is it healthy? Is it effective? Yep. Does it produce anything good? You know, so when we'd say not to do certain things or to refrain from certain things, they're not saying it from a place of, you're a worship leader, you shouldn't do.
No, of course not.
It's that, you know, like when Paul says, though it is lawful, I'm paraphrasing the scripture, but I don't need to participate in that. Some things that they can do, I can't do because of who I am. And I think that God has made it that way because I think any worship leader, any pastor, any minister, anybody who leads, there will know that there's a degree of sensitivity that you have to have, a sensitivity to the Spirit. What is God saying? What is God doing? How is he leading? And how am I going to be a vessel in aligning with that for his people? Mm-hmm. That sensitivity also shows up in other areas, bro. It shows up, like I said, with the stuff that you listen to. Some of the people may not be as sensitive. It doesn't mean that they're wrong, you know, for listening to what they're not going to be as affected by it. But because of who I am, because of what I do, because of what I'm responsible for, some music I'm going to listen to is going to affect me, bro. And it's going to affect me in a negative way, you know? And so you're absolutely right. The playlists are very selective on Saturdays, man.
I'm the same way with you because I love country, bro. Yeah. Oh, I love me some good.
Come on, now. You know that's my world,
and
bro.
I hated country in the beginning, but actually, she put me on some good old country.
Come on,
Luke Combs is my boy. You know, I love me some Luke Combs.
Yeah,
but
dude.
It's like I'm like, don't get me wrong. I love reggaeton. It's part of my culture, bro. But it's like, bro. But if these dudes are just talking about this, like like that's not me. I don't live this, and then it's like, well, why do you still feel these lustful thoughts or this thing of you can't look at a woman? Well, probably because your music is talking about it. Absolutely. So it alters your mind to eventually just start doing it. And it's like, oh, I can't listen. I know the beat is good.
It's killing.
But it's like, but the lyrics ain't good.
It's going to drive you.
And you have to be careful. And it's like, and I'm leading a little girl. My wife and I are leading a little girl. So it's like, what happens if she might not understand what they're saying at the moment, but it's in her body no matter what. It's in her mind no matter what.
Yeah, man.
Because when she listens to that beat, she hears that beat, even if she's not around us. Oh, but my daddy listens to this. And then next you know, it's like, oh, shoot, I'm not developing a worshiper. I'm developing something different.
Yeah, man.
And it's like, no, but I love the fact that my daughter randomly this week was singing a worship song.
Come on.
Perfect Strength.
Oh, my gosh.
You know, but she loves, but it's like, because we're making our house a house of worship.
Wow.
Bro, she's in school singing a song, and I get teary-eyed because that got me when I was like, well, we were just randomly in the car. No music was being played.
Wow.
Me and Ashley were talking about, we were talking about something. I think we were talking about what we needed to buy or something.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I hear her singing "Your Strength Is Perfect," and I'm like, I just got quiet. I looked at Ashley. I was like, "Yeah," she's just singing it, and I'm just like, man. Bro. But it's like, for me, it's different. Yeah, the music might be cool, but it's like, I'm leading somebody.
Yeah, man.
And that's why I come off the way I come off. I'm leading somebody.
Yeah.
Like I'm leading my family. God calls me to be the priest of my home, the pastor of my home.
Yes, sir.
I can't pastor nobody else if I can't pastor them.
Yep.
So it's like, and like Pastor Ron had said a couple months ago, you know, your representation of God, their representation of you.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if I'm not, I don't want people to be like, I don't want people to look at Ashley and be like, oh, your house is a wreck because of the way you are. That means your husband is a wreck. No, I want them to be like, there's peace in that home because the husband has peace.
Yes, sir.
And he's going to the peacemaker.
Come on.
To feel the peace. You know what I'm saying? So that's why it's like, I know people are like, you're just weird, bro. It's like, yeah, call me weird. But when you're going through the hell, who do you call?
Yeah.
But because there's a peace inside of me.
Right.
And that's because it goes through, music is my thing, bro. I live and breathe it, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, and that's why even with these cameras, I won't pick them up for anything that doesn't have to deal with positivity.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to necessarily be Christian, but it has to be positive.
Yeah, man.
Because there's too much negativity, man. And
there's enough negativity.
Yeah,
out
we're
there,
good.
man.
I don't need that. So
I don't need more of it.
To pivot, we briefly talked about Red Worship a little bit.
Yeah.
And you have the merch on right now.
Shout out. Let's go.
The R Dub. Can we just talk a little bit about Red Worship, because
yeah, man.
it feel like, to people that are watching, listening, it came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But there's a sound in Red Worship that is, I mean, bro,
I'm proud of it, man.
It's different.
It's different. And I'm not gonna lie, that's the first time I heard R Dub, and I think we got to coin that. That's killer, bro. R Dub. That's killer.
I always do that all the time.
Dude, you need to text Lizzie and Sharif right now and just be like, look, R Dub, that's killer. No, Red Worship, number one is, I can't say it enough. It is a joy to be a part of. I'm excited. I'm passionate, and it's amazing. Red Worship essentially began, I want to say, when did we record The Loudest Color? When was that? Were you guys there for that?
No, we were gonna come down.
Dang, man, that's crazy.
You guys sent us a DM.
Yeah, that was Good Friday of, I want to say 2021. I want to say 2021. Honestly, I mix up the years, but 2021, because we released the first single in January or was it 2022?
It was 2022.
2022. My bad. All right, so 2022. And then we released the first single off of that in January. Okay, so rewind. Pastor Ron actually had a label within the ministry for a lot of years, and kind of just sat dormant, And when I say had a label, he had done all of the stuff that you need to do to have a label, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know all those details, but essentially, had a label, and for lack of a better word, did a couple projects with, the team that they had before, but never like consistently like made it like a regular thing. And like, okay, the church is going to record worship music and it's going to, publish it. And, that whole realm of things, similar to what a Gateway or an Elevation or a Bethel, whatever the case may be. And, but in 2022, so that was April. So I would say at the end of 2021, we had some pretty incredible people kind of come into this circle. One of them was Roosevelt Stewart. Man, I can't honor that man enough.
That guy's incredible.
He's an incredible, man. And if he is hearing that, bro, we love you. We appreciate you. You have made a tremendous impact. You are at a tremendous impact. He came in, and Pastor Ron had said shortly before he got there, he was like, I think it's time we start exploring the idea of writing original music and making the creation and the, doing the songs in church, but also putting worship music out. Let's make it a thing. And so with Roosevelt getting there, we all had a conversation. We sat down. We're like, look, this is something we want to do. What do you think about it? And Roosevelt was like, oh, I'm down. I want to help y'all write and produce, and let's do this thing. And then, Lizzie Morgan, man, I can't talk about Lizzie enough. Lizzie's still, she's still with us, and she sings with us, a few weekends a month, but she had such a heavy hand, coming from Mav and having that writing experience and wanting to bring that to the local church setting and knowing how to do that and whatnot. And so you had Lizzie, you had Roosevelt, and then you had our MD, who is also, the head and the lead of our label, Terrence White. So you bring all those guys in a room, and then you throw somebody as new to this game as myself in there, and we're like, whatever we got to do, we're going to do it. Like, let's work, let's write all hours of the night, And so that's essentially what happened, man. And then we had our first writing camp in that year. So 2021, because we recorded in 2022. Yeah. In July of that year. And we wrote for 3 days in the city of Sausalito. And with a few other people, who had a tremendous impact. And I would say shortly after that writing camp, just before the recording, in that gap, we had a few meetings, and essentially that was where we brought to some of the creatives in the church, and of course the team that I just mentioned right now, who is this? What is this thing called? And then we had different names, and are we going to just be Redemption Worship? Or are we going to be, Redemption Sounds or whatever, all these random names and different things. And then I remember, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know exactly who coined the name the first, but I remember Pastor Ron saying it. It might have been Liz, I don't know, but I remember hearing Red Worship. And I think once that was said at the table, it kind of got quiet, and we all knew, there's something on that. Red obviously is short for redemption. That's making it plain, making it clear that this thing is birthed, rooted, and is founded at the core of Redemption Church, which is the heart and the ministry that our pastors lead. And so that is basically how it began. And I'm probably missing a few things. And, any of the team members, if you guys know, put it in the comments of this stuff and make sure it's accurate.
Yeah.
But since then, we've had folks like Trinity Anderson. Oh my gosh.
Goodness.
Trinity Anderson, man, she is a joy and an absolute blessing. I was talking to her just yesterday, got on the phone with her, and I've shared this with Jazz. I'm like, when she's around, I just feel like almost like a breath of fresh air. She just walks in such intimacy with the Lord and is an incredible leader, loves people, and she's become pretty much a part of our camp since last year. It's been over a year she's been around, man, and has written with us. She was on the last record, which was, she featured on one more, and has just brought so much to this team. I could almost get choked up talking about it because she has just been such a blessing and such a joy to have. And, so between her, you had Roosevelt, Liz, and then, we got to work with Jonathan Traylor, man. Come on, man. Like,
oh my, he's coming on.
Yeah. What can I say?
On. That dude is incredible,
what can I say?
Man.
What can I say enough about JT, man? He was just leading with us last weekend, and he came on a Sunday. He came out to cut, Come Alive.
Yeah.
And I remember we had somebody lined up and it fell through and whatever. And, I think it was Lizzie who mentioned, what about Jonathan Traylor? And then none of us knew him. I knew his music because I loved his version of Sea of Victory and What a Beautiful Name. I told him when I met him, I was like, bro, I got that song on repeat, man.
That song goes hard.
It goes hard, just the way he does it, because he mashes it too. He kills, man.
Yeah.
And so he, came out to Come Alive right before Easter. And, it just since then, so we've had him, be a part, and he considers himself a part of the team, a part of the family. And so between all the people that I mentioned, man, and of course, we have our team, our East Coast team who come out and are a part of what we do, Ashley and whatnot. And it's been amazing, man. And it's only the beginning. We say sometimes when we hit some of the hard stuff, it's less than a year old. So it's a baby. It's going to cry. It's going to cause us some headaches. But yeah, man, that's who Red Worship is. We are, we came up with the name also to represent. There's so much division in this world, bro. There is so much, especially out in a beautiful state like California. We can't agree on anything, and literally. And, but one of the things that brings us together, and you talked about earlier, you're like the blood, right? The blood of Jesus, somehow, some way. And the blood coursing through our veins, even through through the generations, and what the calling of God has on our lives and whatnot. The one thing that, regardless of what socioeconomic background you have, race, ethnicity, age, tax bracket, you name it, the one thing we all have in common is that we all bleed red. That's the bottom line. We don't bleed green, blue, yellow, purple. It doesn't matter. We all bleed red, and so that's also how that name came to be, and essentially how that was the branding came to be and whatnot. So we that's who we are, and that's how it began. And got more music coming, and can't wait, man. It's gonna be killer.
What does Red Worship mean to you, though?
Oof, that's a great question.
Because you just mentioned it all, right? Loudest color, everything, just the blood. Obviously, the short meaning of redemption and all that. But what does Red Worship mean to Andrew?
It's a great question.
If someone was to bring you outside, but man, you're part of Red Worship, which you are.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, but what does it mean to you? We asked Lizzie's going to be different. We asked Trinity's probably going to be different. We asked Roosevelt, even T. White. It might all be different to them. Maybe it's the same.
Yeah.
What does it mean to you when you think of Red Worship?
Something that does come to mind with Red Worship, the first word that comes to mind is freedom. The reason why I say freedom is because I think there is really no holds bar and there's no limitation on the expression of worship and praise that comes out of that brand. And because we're all from different, and the reason why I say that is because it does mean a lot because we all come from different places.
Literally.
The different backgrounds and walks of life, I'm a kid I'm a dude who was a kid who grew up in downtown LA who didn't grow up in church. And I'll be 100, man. I didn't grow up around anything but like Christian rock and roll and country and that realm of things. And you have other heads in our camp who they grew up in church and it was either Kojic or Pentecostal, or they grew up, stomping and shouting their whole life. And that is that is just their DNA, whatever the case may be. You cannot have two polar opposites in the realm of the spectrum of the people we have represented in this camp. Mm-hmm. And somehow we come together and something incredible is birthed and is allowed to be expressed. And that's why I'm saying there is no Red Worship will never do that. Hey, hold on, y'all. I don't know. Somehow, some way it'll find itself to come out. And I think that means a lot to me because I believe that is also a heavenly representation. Sometimes when it comes to denominational backgrounds and all these other different things, everybody can have, I'm not going to say has, but can have a perspective of this is not a way of doing things. This is the way of doing things, which is two completely different thoughts. Mm. If I tell you I have a solution, there means that there's other solutions, right? But if I tell you I have the solution, that means there's only one. And sometimes when it comes to expressions of praise and worship and what it looks like and what it sounds like, some people can believe and feel like this is the way it ought to be expressed, whatever the case may be. We don't really have that. It's kind of like, these are the songs we're going to write. We're going to align and follow the core and the vision of our pastors and make sure that is translated and is seen, heard, and felt in the music. You said what now?
No, yeah, through the music.
Through the music. And but in terms of what it sounds like, you have to wait for the next record to come out.
That's why I sounds like heaven.
Exactly, man. Shameless plug, man. Do it.
I got the shirt. Come on, man. I'm wearing it tomorrow in church.
Do it, bro.
But it's incredible because if you really listen to the musicianship of the song, you can hear rock, you can hear gospel, you can hear CCM, you can hear that the strings of just that stringy worship. You can hear all of it. You can hear everybody's background in one song.
Absolutely.
And that is it's so dope. You know what I'm saying?
I love it, dude.
Because I grew up in a Spanish church, right?
Yeah.
Where I grew up with timbales and congas and the drummer. Man. And then I go from that to a church where it's puro gospel.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And then I end up going to a church where it's nothing but CCM, stringy, worshipy, guitars are just swelling.
Yep.
And then I come to a church where it's all of that in one.
Literally, dude.
And it's like, I'm pretty sure this is what heaven sounds like.
Come on, man.
Because it's everything. You have Hispanics, you have Caucasians, you have African Americans, you have almost Asians, you have almost Middle Eastern, you have almost every race all in this one group worshiping God, worshiping the same God,
Come on.
all at the same time,
Yeah.
creating a sound that's literally like a sound of heaven.
Yeah.
And it's like, yo, this is sick. That's
love
what I
it,
say. Red Worship was number, I think, 2 or 3 on my list this year.
Wow, bro.
Because
that's amazing, man.
To go back to Perfect Strength, that song to me means a lot because I was going through some very dark, like when that song came out, I was going through it. I remember just things happening. We had to move out of the house we were at.
Yeah, man.
I'm going through it and I'm like, man, Lord, what am I doing? I don't know what to do. I was at a loss.
Yeah.
I'm not leading my family. I didn't feel like a leader. I felt like a little boy at that moment.
Wow.
I felt like I needed, like, my wife had to lead me.
Come on.
Which there's no problem, but like, God, you called me to be the man, and I don't have it in me. And Perfect Strength came out, like that one part, your strength is perfect for me.
Yeah.
You find me in times of need. Like, dude, I was playing every Sunday.
Wow.
Had the biggest smile on my face every time someone saw me.
Yeah.
But we closed that door, and I was broken.
Yeah, dude.
And nobody knew. Crying out to God, and I'm like, God, you've pulled me out of so much.
Yeah.
Why? And he's like, I need you to feel this for a second. Because what you're entering into, you're going to be able to talk about that feeling.
Come on.
And Perfect Strength literally took me out of like this dark hole that I was in, that I was falling in. I've only been able to experience, and I'm grateful to say I've only experienced depression hard only twice in my life.
Wow.
Right before I had Isla, and it was last year, and she saw it, and she started to see it.
Wow.
And she's just like, you're feeling this way? And I'm like, I am.
Yeah.
And she's like, you keep listening to the song on repeat. And it was just those words,
Come
bro.
on, man.
And like, I felt, and that's why to me, it might be probably the most underrated song from Red Worship, but it's probably my favorite song from Red Worship. Even from the new record that's going to come out, I'm fortunate to hear all these incredible songs, but there's something about Perfect Strength that just does it for me. And you can ask, I've said this even on podcasts before when we were talking about music and all that. Any of my friends, when they, what's a good song to listen to this one? Yeah. And I'm like, and then go listen to the rest. Yeah. But listen to this one first. Yeah. And they're like, okay, Nemo, now I understand your life. Nehemiah, now I understand why your worship is different now. I'm like, yeah, because this song helped me get through it. And then again, to be able to now be in the room with the people that created the song and just like they're family to us now. You know what I'm saying? Man. So
that song is huge. That song, and it's crazy. I'll share this. A lot of people don't know. I think we talked about this once before, maybe. Probably. Yeah. We actually almost cut that song 2 days. Cut it from, when I say cut it, we were going to remove it. We weren't going to record it. Yeah. 2 days before we recorded it, there's so much stuff had come up, and who's going to lead it, and there are certain elements of the song that weren't working, and then Terrence and Roosevelt looked at me and were like, you know what, you're going to lead it. And Roosevelt said, you and I will co-lead it. And I'm like, no, like there's no way, man. It was my first time, getting serious about something like this. And I remember when it was written at that, I told you about that Sausalito camp. So it had been sitting for some time, and a combination of things. Number one, when we had listened back to the demo, the cell phone demo from when we had written it, it wasn't like our favorite. It kind of had the same progression as almost every other worship song out there. And it was just, the words were kind of repetitive. But Lizzie and I had actually sat down, she probably doesn't even remember this, after church one Sunday. And we're like, let's revisit this. And the words originally were, let me be weak so you can be strong. The second verse, it was going to be that way the whole time. Let me be weak, let me be weak, let me be weak. And when we were sitting down, we were like, what if it's a testimony at the beginning? In the times I've been weak, so you've shown yourself faithful before, and then the second verse could be, let me be weak. So even now in my weakness, you've been faithful before, I'm going to allow you to be faithful now, so I'm going to be weak now. When that started happening, we're like, okay, the song can live, but then the question was like, who's going to lead it? How's this song going to be carried? And I don't mind sharing this. There were certain notes up in there that, because the range of the song was so high, I couldn't hit. Terrence sat down and was like, stop finding excuses. let's change the melody. So what a lot of people don't know is even the melody of that song,
Wow.
we adjusted 2 days before we cut it, bro. And somehow, some way, that song ended up, coming together in such a beautiful way. And that song means a lot to me too. It's like, cause it's the first, Lizzie and I did Sounds Like Heaven, but it was Sounds Like Heaven. It was, I had kind of already known I was going to lead that one. I was excited about it. I was practicing it a bunch. And it was more of my vein, especially that big guitar riff at the beginning, man. And I'm like, that's my vibe. Perfect Strength was kind of like the first worship song that I got my hands on in this context. And so it will always be special to me. Maybe might recut it sometime. I don't know. But I tell everybody, when people are like, that's my favorite song, I'm like, it's mine too. And I promise you, not just because I lead it with Roosevelt, but it just means a lot to me because I do remember almost needing to apply those words that night, man, sitting backstage with Roosevelt. I don't know if I could do this, man. And, families in town and feeling all of the insecure things. And I remember Roosevelt saying, "You're going to believe what you wrote." And I was like, dang, that stopped me.
Roosevelt be saying some stuff, bro.
He's like, stop letting people believe in you when you don't believe in yourself, or out believe in you, or something like that. He said it some way, and it stuck with me. And so that was that song, man, will always mean a lot to me. So to hear you say that, it's just like, I can't hear that enough, because that was the goal. Like I said, you press through all that stuff. I was saying earlier, you press through all that stuff so people can experience it too. So people can experience the peace, the strength, the power, and that it is a feeling of, no, God, your strength really is made perfect in weakness.
Yeah, that song is,
as it's said in the scripture.
About to cry right now.
Go ahead, man.
About this song. With Red Worship and what's going on, how do you handle, as being a person who's obviously deeply involved in it?
Yeah.
How do you handle it's not even a year yet.
Okay.
And it's growing very quickly.
Yeah.
I'm a guy who obviously sees numbers in social media and all that, just because that's what we do.
Yeah.
It's rising. How do you keep the main thing? Oof. In a time where, let's be honest, this generation more than ever, this culture that we're living in more than ever, is numbers driven. It's appearance driven. It's the way you look. It's the way you sound.
Yeah.
It's the way you carry yourself.
Yeah.
People want to see that. It's like, and then you have to almost like, I have to keep an image because I'm in front of a camera. I have to keep an image because you're going on Spotify or Apple Music and listening to me. Mm-hmm. How do you keep the main thing with the rise that's happening? And I said, it's not even a year yet. Imagine when it hits a year. My goodness.
My God. That's a great question. I do feel it's not one of those things where here's a textbook answer, steps 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
I do think there's a few things that you can keep at the forefront of your mind, almost to kind of like stay humble, right? I love, you talked about married life, right? Yeah. I love being married because, it's one of those things where we had X amount of followers on Instagram. We have X amount of streams. I didn't even lead the song that is blowing up, but I helped write it or whatever. I'll come home. I'll tell Jasmine that, right? And that's so awesome, babe. Did you take out the trash? And I'm like, all right. Did Halo get his nighttime walk? Or whatever. And I say all that to say, because it kind of keeps you grounded. It keeps you in that sense of, I'm not on 20 clouds, floating on a planet all by myself. I am a family man first, because a lot of people would say that what's the main thing, and it's keeping Jesus at the forefront of everything. And I completely believe that. And that I almost would say that's Christian common sense, right? But I also feel like, coin that, right? I also feel that keeping the main thing is keeping your priorities straight. You said your first ministry is to your family, right? Yeah. And literally, Jazz and I are driving home just last night, working, dealing with stuff, or 2 nights ago, and she was telling me, she's like, Levi, who's her little, and she wouldn't mind me sharing this, she's raising her little brother. We're raising her little brother right now. She is, we're his guardians, and he's 12. and jumped quite ahead into life, man. And she was like, he really needs time with us. And whatever we got to do to make that happen. I said, you're right. Whatever we got to do to make that happen, we're going to make that happen. I think that's how you keep the main thing. And it doesn't, and again, I'm really careful on how I communicate this stuff, because what I don't want to do is give permission and allow the enemy to twist my words to be like, okay, then that means if you're giving attention to this, you can neglect this. No, it's a stewardship. You're technically responsible for it all.
Oh, yep.
What that means is that, and I am learning this because I have not been, we were talking about working out. You know what? Afternoons, bro, I used to be able to do whatever I wanted to do. No, now, if I want to go to the gym, I want to have my private time and do my thing and focus on me, is going to happen at 5:30 in the morning or 4:30 in the morning before everybody wakes up. That is the time that it is most effective when it comes to working out. Main thing is I'm going to get my stuff done so I can give my time and attention to my family. That's the main thing, bro. And okay, so we hit that. When it comes to the other side of this thing, which is the ministry side, is I very clearly and confidently can share, I know who I'm called to. I know what I'm called to. You know, I know that when I am in ministry, when I am in a house, the scripture said, and I've heard countless preachers and people quote this, I build his house, he will build mine, you know, and they preach that and whatever, and it sounds beautiful, but it's actually true in regard to the fact that if I make sure that I am taking care of his house, the house that he's placed me in, which is right now in this walk in this time, Redemption Church, that is who I'm responsible for. That is who I'm responsible to.
All right, y'all. So you're probably wondering, why did it just stop the way it stopped? Don't worry about it. We're going to do a part 2. Unfortunately, we had some technical difficulties with our system, but guess what? That means we're going to get a part 2 with your boy Andrew, so I cannot wait. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment down below your favorite part of the episode, and I can't wait to see you on the next one. Peace.